Which was the first country to have a rule of law? If you look in your textbooks, it might be Germany, but in fact, I have to tell you that it was in China more than 2,000 years ago, in the state of Qin. Qin abolished the aristocratic system and established a bureaucratic system. You can watch another video of mine to understand the difference between aristocracy and bureaucracy. We know that the bureaucratic system means using the law to govern the world, and bureaucrats need to be familiar with Qin laws, which were sent to various places by the emperor. Officials need to obey the law, and you can search for the Qin Code, which describes the laws in great detail, including the management of officials, the people, national resources, and the land. From top officials to the people, the country's resources, there are detailed laws. If an official makes a wrong judgment, they will bear the full responsibility for their own mistake, and basically they are finished. If the people cut down trees and destroy natural resources, they will have to pay a huge price. In short, in Qin, to avoid corruption between officials and businessmen, Qin stipulated that merchants were not allowed to hold office. If you want to be an official, you have to give up your business. The central government collected weapons, and the three-duke nine-advisor system was established, with the three dukes being the prime minister, the grand marshal, and the inspector general. The prime minister manages the political system, which means that personnel appointments can be requested from the emperor, such as China's most famous official, Zhuge Liang, who held the position of prime minister. The grand marshal manages military affairs in general and oversees the imperial guard, which is responsible for protecting the imperial palace and the central governing system. Generals who go out to fight are appointed by the emperor personally. The Grand Secretary monitors the situation and uses the law to monitor whether all officials in the country are abiding by the law and doing their jobs properly. If any problems are found, the Grand Secretary can report to the emperor whether to dismiss the official. The emperor has the final decision-making power. The 9 ministers are usually the Grand Historian, who manages sacrifices and cultural affairs, the Grand Eunuch, who is the emperor's bodyguard, the Grand Marshal, who is in charge of the outer protection of the imperial palace, the Grand Master of Horse, who manages the emperor's horses, the Grand Prosecutor, who is the highest court of appeal, the Grand Interpreter, who handles communication with other countries, the Grand Guardian, who handles family affairs within the imperial family, the Grand Agricultural Administrator, who manages the taxes needed for the country to function, and the Grand Treasurer, who manages the country's natural resources and the profits of government-owned businesses, in other words, the emperor's businesses in the real world. Since the emperor collected all the weapons in the world, no other local forces could have weapons, otherwise it would be equivalent to plotting against the emperor. Since officials cannot engage in business and businessmen cannot be officials, wealthy merchants do not have the power to exploit the people. Powerful officials have no money, no resources, and cannot easily rebel. They do not have the qualifications to negotiate with the emperor, so they must obey the emperor. Since officials act within the law, they cannot exploit the people. All capital punishments and major crimes must be reported to the imperial procurator, and local officials do not have the right to kill people. This is all to raise the status of the people, so there is a Chinese saying that the people are of paramount importance, meaning that the lives of the people are of great importance to the world. Why did ancient Chinese emperors care so much about the lives of the people? In the eyes of the emperor, the people of the country are the emperor's subjects. The emperor's regard for the people is evident. The emperor values the people because the interests of the people are tied to the emperor's interests, namely taxes. In China, the emperor abolished the feudal lords in each region, so people throughout the country do not need to be exploited by every local lord. All they need to do is pay a small amount of tax to the emperor, and the rest is their own. This allows all the people of the country to have their own private property. Therefore, in the emperor's eyes, the people are his units of wealth production. Officials are merely tools to help manage the people. I just need to give officials the benefits they deserve, but I do not allow you to exploit my people. What did the emperor do? Because the emperor confiscated all weapons in the country, officials were not allowed to engage in business. This led to other regional forces not having weapons or resources to fight against the central emperor, and each local official was not from the local area. but was appointed by the emperor, so the local forces did not have enough time to develop their own power. Many officials were from poor families and were chosen by the emperor through the imperial examination and became officials with power. They were extremely grateful for the emperor's recognition. There is a story in the Forbidden City called Fan Jin Passes the Imperial Examinations, which you can look up. In China, there is a saying that a scholar will die for his patron. You can look up a story about that. This reduced the emperor's concerns about war and also reduced the emperor's need for taxes from the people. Secondly, since the emperor ruled the entire country, everyone was paying taxes to the emperor, so the emperor had a lot of resources. This reduced the emperor's exploitation of individual resources, meaning that the emperor's own family needed only so much resources and wealth, and since the entire country was his subjects, he only needed a little tax revenue. This would leave a lot of resources in the hands of the people, and the people would become wealthy, and when the lower classes became wealthy, they would have resources, which could greatly promote human development. Please see my other videos. The meaning of trade, the meaning of law, the meaning of resources, and finally the meaning of capital. And in China, if there is a place that has suffered a disaster, the emperor must spend money to alleviate the disaster. In other words, the emperor uses money to mobilize resources from other places to protect the residents who have suffered the disaster. Otherwise, the people will not be able to survive and will rebel. People who cannot survive do not need money or costs, but the emperor needs enough money to support the good people and the people who have not suffered the disaster to go to war. To train the army, over time, the emperor will not be able to support the army and will be replaced by the force he himself appointed to suppress the rebellion, which is usually a general. In return, the rebels will rise up and overthrow the dynasty. In ancient China, there is also a saying that the emperor, the supreme ruler, is guilty of the same crime as the common people when he breaks the law, meaning that the emperor, the highest ruler, is guilty of the same crime as the common people when he breaks the law, and must be punished. Of course, the emperor usually does not break the law, but when he makes a big mistake and does not have enough protection, he will be abolished by the most powerful official, usually the prime minister, and a new emperor will be established from the emperor's family, which means that the ruler can be abolished in name when he breaks the law. Qin dynasty governed the world with legal systems, and the laws of Qin dynasty were different from modern laws. The laws of Qin dynasty prioritized the interests of the state, while modern legal systems prioritize the interests of the people. You can learn more about the significance of law in my other video. In summary, the laws allowed people to own private property and shared resources. Resources drive individual quality development and promote people's development. In short, it was because of the laws that China has been the strongest country in the world for 2,000 years, until the incompetent Qin dynasty government. In the past, Marco Polo thought that China was full of gold, and Voltaire called China the center of culture. In short, the laws allowed people to own their own private property and develop their abilities, leading to China's brilliant civilization. Meanwhile, what was the life of the people in Europe during the same period? It was the so-called Dark Ages, which were actually very dark. Japanese samurai could kill civilians at will to test their swords, and Russia only abolished serfdom in 1861. In a sense, it was because of the legal system of Qin Emperor that China had legal systems 2,000 years ahead of the world, and that the Chinese people had human rights ahead of people in other